Hey, it's DexPC5, creator of the Just My Take podcast. And I want to let you know about a very special podcasting platform to me. It's Anchor. I've been using Anchor since the beginning of the show. It's helped me out a lot. And I want to tell you a little bit more about Anchor. So, Anchor is a one stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing your podcast. Best of all, it's 100% free. 100% free and ridiculously easy to use. And now, Anchor can match you with great sponsors too, so you can get paid to podcast. So think about it, people. You get to do the podcast, it's 100% free, and you get paid. You can't beat that. You can't beat that out. Check it out, Anchor. You'll love the podcast platform. Peace. Hey, how's it going? It's another episode of Just My Take podcast. This is Dex PC5. How you guys doing today? We got another episode for you guys, for you all here today. First, I want to thank everyone who has been listening to my show continuously. I appreciate the love and support. The subscribers of the show, the ones who keep tuning in week after week after week. I appreciate it very much. I know that the show it's growing. It's gonna take time before it gets big, but all I can ask is that you continue to just spread the word to get the name out there, get the takes out there, and then hit me up on Instagram or Twitter to give me your feedback on the show. That's the only way I can get this show to grow. Once I get on winter break, I'm gonna try to do more to actually grow the show. Try to do more social media presence, maybe create a website, all that jazz. So anyway, this week is gonna be pretty much gonna be all about the NFL. I do want to mention a little tidbit about the college football. I have been hearing some rumors that you're having some conferences actually considering doing a group of an 18 playoff, which I think is needed. And the reason why they're doing an 18 playoff is because, as I said in the previous episode, but I'm going to say it again, four is not enough. Four is just not enough. I mean, they shifted from the BCS to the top four teams based off a committee, but you're still leaving quality teams out. And based off the committee, you really don't know if these teams are the best teams fielded. I mean, we look at this year. I mean, can you really say that Oklahoma was better than maybe Georgia or Ohio State that was left out? Was better than UCF. While granted, UCF played in a mid-major conference, they went back to back 2 years in a row. At some point, you got to give a team a chance to prove themselves. So I think if they went to a top eight, I think it would benefit college football. Because the problem is, it's starting to be regional. If I'm on the West Coast, excuse me, I've been a little under the weather the past few weeks. If I'm on the West Coast, why am I watching the playoff? There's no Pac-12 team there. There's none. And I honestly feel that they added in Oklahoma as the fourth seed for this college football player because they couldn't add in Georgia because they didn't want another two SEC teams. I think if you have a top eight playoff, you're able to get all the best teams in there. You get the best group of five mid-major team in there. And you're probably able to get most of the conference winners in there. I mean, if a conference winner has three or more losses, and the rest of the field only has two, then they don't qualify. It is what it is. But for the most part, you're going to have a pretty balanced field where everyone in the country has a team. Every region has a team that they can at least go for. Because the problem is when you make it too regional, people just tune out. And I think that's one of the problems with baseball that they experience until the playoffs. Because I know on the East Coast, the Yankees and Red Sox is a huge rivalry. And I know it's a huge rivalry in baseball in general. But if I'm living in California, do I really care about the Red Sox and Yankees unless it's a playoff game? Probably not. I'm probably more focused on the Dodgers versus the Giants, honestly. Or if I'm in Texas, the Astros versus the Rangers. So the sport just becomes more regional. And a lot of these sports, they are competing to grow their national presence. Right now, the NFL just dominates because every game people are watching. The NFL has had a great year compared to last year. I mean, I know last year we had the Kaepernick thing, which I'm not, which whether you agree or disagree, I feel he was doing it for the right reasons. Maybe the way he went about it, some people disagree on that, but hey, it is what it is. But another reason why ratings were down was there's just a lot of injuries to a lot of great players. This year, there's not that many injuries. It's a close playoff race so far. I mean, we're at week 15, I believe. We're at week 15. So it's coming down to the wire. But every game matters, and the reason one of the reasons why NFL does so good is because the whole country pays attention. Even in the Super Bowl, if there's a Super Bowl between the Patriots and Giants, people on the West Coast will watch it because the NFL just knows how to grab the national attention. The NBA does the same thing because they market heavy on the stars. Baseball is starting to work its way through it, but it's going to take some time. But college football, I'm sorry, like right now, the South is just doing very well. Again, you're going to have Alabama and Clemson in the playoff. Again, we might see an Alabama and Clemson national championship. Oklahoma, we've seen in the playoff for some time too. So we're starting to see the same teams in the college football playoff. It gets boring after a while. And then you see that these teams are reloading again, and you're like, what is this? So therefore, you know, I think college football, and not only that, but like I mentioned last week, if I'm Central Florida, I'm getting pissed because I have been back to back 2 years in a row. The big schools don't really want to schedule me. What am I supposed to do here? What am I supposed to do? Excuse the background. My dog is like drinking some water. But anyway, what am I supposed to do? So that's why I feel you make it 8. They should have done 8 a long time ago. I don't want the NCAA and college football to drag its feet and wait another 10 years to make a substantial change like they did with the BCS in 2001 and it didn't take until almost recently to do the playoffs. Let's just make the damn change now. Let's move on because especially broadcast partners like ESPN, I'm sure for a fact they're losing out on money, especially on the West Coast because you're they don't I mean they love football, but seeing the same Southern teams and not seeing a USC or Oregon in there, who do they got to root for? Who is their team to play a stake in there? So that's my rant on college football. They should definitely do the top 8. We're gonna talk some NFL. So let's get into the NFL. Before I get into the NFL recap, I want to run something by you. I think it's time that the NFL implements a major change into their salary cap. Hear me out. Now, the NFL is known for having the toughest salary cap amongst all sports leagues in America. Some say that it's too harsh of a cap. Some say they enjoyed this cap the most and wish that other leagues would enforce a cap like this. Me, I prefer the NBA where there is a cap, but it's a soft cap because if you want the soft cap, it allows teams that have drafted the player, that have made them a star. They have a few rules, a few things that they can do to keep that star longer. For example, the Supermax contract. If an NBA player gets All NBA and any of the years leading up to the contract, they're eligible for the Supermax, which is a 5-year deal, max contract. It's one more extra year max contract that they can offer compared to a competing team. I think that helps the league out more because you're able to keep the stars in the teams that they already came up on. Now, obviously, some teams move around, but some stars stay just to get the contract. I prefer the soft cap. Also, in a situation where you have the Golden State Warriors, if they were to do a supermax for basically all 5 starters, they could. They could. They just would have to pay extra in the luxury tax because they went over the salary cap. But some teams are willing to pay that extra tax to keep a great team together. And I think that's good for the league. With the NFL, with the hard cap, the problem I have with it is it forces teams to break up sooner than they have to because the situation is a team can never stay good for long. I look at the Seattle Seahawks. when Seattle had Russell Wilson and the Legion of Boom, at some point when they won that first Super Bowl, all these players are young. All these players are going to be having their first big contracts. And when it came time for the contract, Seattle simply could not pay them all. So players left, players moved on, and now, Russell Wilson's by himself. Some people says with this hard cap, it breathes new life into the NFL because it's always changing things around. The problem I have of it is when it comes to the quarterbacks. Because with the quarterbacks, I think when people talk about the Patriots and Tom Brady has taken a lot of pay cuts to make the Patriots competitive. Tom Brady could have took a ridiculous competitive contract if he wanted. But due to his current situation, he's married to Gisele, who's a supermodel. Brady doesn't need as much money from his contract, so it allows the Patriots to go out and get pieces to make the team competitive. I believe Drew Brees has done something similar as well. The problem I have with that is that starts to be the expectation, and then fans get mad at players who take big contracts. And it shouldn't be the case because these players have busted their butts all their lives. Why is it when it's their turn to get a big contract, all of a sudden they have to take a pay cut to help a team owner that's making 10 times as much more money? I don't think it's a fair system at all. But the problem with these contracts is when a quarterback takes a super max contract, there's not enough cap space for the rest of the team. Here's a prime example. My favorite team, the Green Bay Packers. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers has the richest contract in the league in league history. It doesn't leave enough space for the Packers to go around and take moves. But Aaron Rodgers, he's one of the best in the league. And to be honest, if he were to take a pay cut, how does he know that Green Bay is actually going to use that money to get free agents? When in the past 6-7 years, they don't really go after free agents. They just spend their time in the drafts. So of course he's going to take the money, and he has every right to. I've seen people like Matt Ryan and Matt Stafford, they taking big contracts too. And so what you're seeing is you're starting to see a little bit of a divide because you're starting to see, we're talking about a quarterback that's going to be up for a contract, Dak Prescott. Now, obviously, he's not the caliber of Aaron Rodgers, but I guess one the thinking. You got Dak Prescott. He's probably going to want to get paid, especially if Dallas goes on a good run in the playoffs. You got Amari Cooper, who just got traded because he wants a big contract. Ezekiel Elliott, he's going to want a big contract. How do you pay all these players? Does Dak take the pay cut to justify keeping all these players? I don't know. I think, in my personal opinion, what needs to happen is you need to have two separate salary caps, one for the quarterback and one for the rest of the team. I'm going to say again, two separate salary caps, one for the quarterbacks only, one for the rest of the team. So, for example, with the Green Bay Packers, Green Bay can pay Aaron Rodgers the money that they want to pay. There's a salary cap, there's a limit where, okay, the richest quarterback can only get this much, but it doesn't count against the rest of the team's cap. Because for the most part, for most franchises, the richest player is most likely going to be the quarterback, just because they're the face of the franchise. So teams are mostly always going to pay the quarterback the most. There's a few teams where that's not the case, but for, I would say 70% of the league, that's probably going to be the case. So you take Aaron Rodgers' contract out of the Packers salary cap, just leave that as separate. And then the salary cap the salary cap that doesn't include Rodgers' contract, Green Bay can play with that. So they could have went out and gotten Khalil Mack and pay him the big money. They could have traded for Le'Veon Bell and paid them the big money. I think this would generate more interest in the NFL. And it will also help the NFL in terms of keeping some of their star players in franchises that they've made famous. I mean, obviously Aaron Rodgers is taking the big deal, but what if he didn't take the big deal and he moved on? I mean, I think the NFL, they benefit from Aaron Rodgers being the Green Bay Packers, because without Aaron Rodgers and the Packers are just not, they're not that relevant of a team, unfortunately. I mean, look at last year when Rodgers was injured. Not a lot of people cared about the Packers. Because if you leave the quarterback's contract out, you have a lot of money to play with so that these teams could be able to pay other position players the money that they deserve. And maybe it should be just like we have the franchise tag. Maybe it should be another thing called the salary cap forgiveness player, where if there's one player who gets the big time contract of the team, they're the face of the franchise, they're the leader of the franchise. Everyone knows, there's no dispute, there's no debate about it. Their contract does not count against the rest of the team's cap. I think that could really help out, because if I'm looking at a team, let's say for example, I mean, listen, we're gonna be probably coming up on a few of these quarterbacks contracts: Deshaun Watson, Jared Goff, Carson Wentz, Patrick Mahomes. The reason why a lot of these teams are doing very good right now is because their quarterbacks are on rookie contracts, so they're able to go out and get star players now so that they could be able to compete. Look at the Rams. Because Jared Goff is on a rookie contract, they were able to pay Aaron Donald that big money. They were able to pay Sua. They were able to pay other players that big contract. But when Jared Goff's contract comes up, I mean, this guy's going to be back-to-back playoffs, possibly a Super Bowl. He's probably going to demand a big contract. He is a future face of the league for the NFL. When Brady and Brees and Rodgers start to fade out and retire, you're looking at Goff, Mahomes, Wentz, Watson, maybe Dak Prescott as the future quarterbacks of the league. They're going to demand big contracts. Chicago, for example. Chicago's a good example where, all right, Mitch Trubisky, he's not going to be the face of the Bears. It's Khalil Mack. Take Khalil Mack's contract, and maybe he's the highest paid player of the team. Don't count that against the rest of the team's salary cap. Or you can just keep a quarterback. Maybe it's easier to just keep a quarterback. You know, if your quarterback's really, really good, you know, it just doesn't count against the cap. Keeps quarterback. Yeah, let's do like that. Quarterbacks' contracts don't count against the salary cap because they're the position most likely to get paid high. That way, you can pay other position players. I think it'll work out for the NFL, because I think the NFL needs to adjust their salary cap, and I would not be surprised if that is one of the requirements of the next CBA agreement from the player side, being like, hey, you know, we got to switch this up. Because I know, I'm telling you people right now, the next CBA, when that expires, this current CBA deal, the players are probably going to go on strike. The NFL players are going to go on strike. I hope you guys are ready, because there's a lot of stuff that's happened from when this current CBA first started to when it expires. The players are going to demand a lot more money because they're seeing their NBA friends getting tons of max contracts, guaranteed money, and NFL players are not getting much. There's going to be a lot of rules and a lot of changes before the NFL resumes. I think this is one of them, and I think this helps teams out a little bit in terms of being able to keep more of the team together, keep the window open a little bit instead of always being forced to get rid of a good player because you don't want to pay them, even though they played to their contract and sometimes outplayed their contract. And the situation with Khalil Mack, I mean, I don't know what's going on with Oakland, but Khalil Mack, he definitely deserved his money. But Oakland did not want to pay him because they got to pay Derek Carr and Amari Cooper. So say you take Derek Carr's contract out of it, you have money for Amari Cooper, you have money for Khalil Mack probably. You could keep that team together. Khalil Mack is traded to the Bears. I mean, the Bears are like, hey, we'll take it. But then what happens with Mr. Trubisky when his time comes? So it just creates complications that I feel they should fix. So that's my take on it. Quarterbacks' contracts should be treated as should be put in its own salary cap pool, separate from the rest of the team. That's what I think should happen. Anyway, let's get into this NFL recap real quick. So week 14 was a good week. We're getting to the tail end. We're almost getting the playoff time. What do you guys think about maybe the playoffs adding a seven team for each conference instead of 6? I mean, I've heard rumors about that. There's some years where it would have worked out, but then there's other years where I'm like, I don't know if we need 17s because I'm looking at the playoffs right now. If the playoffs were to end today in the AFC, Kansas City's 1, New England's 2, Houston's 3, Pittsburgh's 4, Chargers 5, Baltimore is 6. Indianapolis, if there were a 17, would have been the 7th seed. NFC, Saints 1, Rams 2, Bears 3, Dallas 4, Seattle 5, Minnesota 6, Carolina 7. And they're at 6 and 7. So I don't know if that would have been a very attractive 7th seed. So I don't know. But I think that's something that they're looking into because, of course, the NFL is always going to want more extra games. That's just how they are. But the 7th seed is a little finicky. But week 14, my observations from week 14 was the Chicago Bears are for real. The Chicago Bears are definitely for real. They played a very good game versus the Rams. Jared Goff threw a lot of interceptions. That Chicago defense was going after them. Chicago, they're not going to be a team that's going to score a lot of points, but I think they could be the kryptonite to these high-powered offenses. And I don't care what time of the year it is, a good defense is going to take you far, especially in the playoffs. I mean, these high-power offenses, I mean, these quarterbacks, Mahomes and Goff have been playing lights out for the past year. Sometimes they make these Brett Favre throws where it's like they just chuck it in the air and see what happens. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. I think that's just more their youth. But a good defense can stop all of that. Chicago was very impressive. Pittsburgh, I don't know what's going on with them. I mean, this is a team every year you're like, all right, this team should really be a serious contender. But then they always play down to the level of their opponent. I mean, the Raiders have been terrible all year. I don't know why Pittsburgh lost this game with the amount of talent that they have to lose to Oakland like that. Not good. The Saints are rolling. Who else? Who else had a good game? I mean, shocker in Miami. Dolphins keeping their playoff hopes alive. New England. That was a tough loss for New England, and I think unfortunately, I think that's the game that stops New England from being able to get home field advantage. I can see a situation where we're talking in a few weeks' time, the Patriots at Kansas City for the AFC Championship game, and I am not confident that New England can beat Kansas City at home. I am not confident in that. Not confident. I think if it's in Foxborough like this past game, this year, the game this year, yeah. But reverse, I don't know. Indianapolis won a squeaker over Houston. Indianapolis is doing pretty good. The Chargers are rolling. There's a big matchup that's going to happen. Kansas City and the Los Angeles Chargers. That's happening tomorrow. I'm looking forward to that. We'll talk a little bit more about that. And then Dallas having a great win versus Philadelphia. Dallas is also rolling. That partnership with Amari Cooper. I'm happy for the guy. I'm kind of mad because I'm not the biggest fan of the Cowboys, but Cowboys fans are of a different breed. What can you do? What can you do? But I thought Dallas played very well. I think the one person I feel bad for is Dez Bryant because Amari Cooper is a younger, quieter version of Dez. And I think Dez Bryant gets a bad rap because at the end of the day, he was just passionate about football. This guy just wanted to win. He was just vocal. And I think he just I would have loved to see him in the Saints, but he had that ACL tear right before he was going to play. And I don't know if he'll be back in the league. I hope he does. I hope he gets another chance because I think the guy's still a great player. I really do. I would love to have him in Green Bay as a slot receiver. So, and then Seattle, Minnesota, Monday night game. I mean, Seattle played well in Minnesota. Sheesh. For a team that's fighting for the playoffs, they really laid the egg. Kirk Cousins did not have a good game. They just did not have a good game. And I'm looking at the standings right now. Minnesota, they're the sixth seed, but it's going to be very, very tough for them. I don't know if they'll sneak into the playoffs. You still got Carolina and Philly and Washington and technically Green Bay nipping at their heels. Minnesota they should sneak in, but who knows? Who knows? Um, Looking at the standings right now, you're looking at let's see. The AFC is just tough right now. Kansas City's looking very good. Um, New England, Houston, Pittsburgh. The one thing I like about this AFC picture right now is I think for the Patriots, they are going to go through some heavyweight fights, which is all I want. Yes, if the Patriots make the Super Bowl, it is what it is. I think a lot of people are getting sick of the Patriots, but that's just the way it's been for the past almost 20 years. But at least you want to see them battle it out. I think this is the year where they're going against a couple of teams that are not afraid to play New England. I look at Kansas City; they're very confident. I think this might be the year Andy Reid might finally get that big Super Bowl win. He tried several times in Philly. I remember when the Philadelphia Eagles, when they had Donovan McNabb, they went to like 4 straight NFC Championship games, one Super Bowl, and Andy Reid just could not get it done. I think Patrick Mahomes could be the guy to take them to that promised land. The Houston Texans are finally playing the way they should. They got a lot of talent in Houston. Deshaun Watson, Demarius Thomas, DeAndre Hopkins, J.J. Watt, and Clowney on defense. Bill O'Brien is finally turning this team, making it a legit threat. I know they play New England closely. They got that mobile quarterback that sometimes New England struggles against. Again, you got the Baltimore Ravens. If they come in as the sixth seed, if they play New England, that's also a battle-tested team. Yes, they got Lamar Jackson. It's different from Joe Flacco, but Lamar Jackson is a mobile quarterback. He's a hot hand right now. And I don't think, Baltimore's not a team that's afraid of New England. The Chargers, I'm going to see how the Chargers play tomorrow. I think that's going to be the game of the week, the Chargers versus the Chiefs. I haven't seen too much of how the Chargers have played, but they got Philip Rivers. Philip Rivers is a phenomenal quarterback. If there's any year for Philip Rivers to finally get to a Super Bowl, this might be the year. This might be the year. I think the Chargers are very underrated. Philip Rivers, Melvin Gordon, they can get to the promised land. I really do think they can be a Super Bowl contender. I have more faith in them than Pittsburgh because the thing with Pittsburgh, they have all the talent in the world, but there's just too much drama between Tomlin and Big Ben and Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell. I would not be surprised if Big Ben maybe hangs it up after this year. I would not be surprised just because Pittsburgh just has too much drama. And I think that the Patriots right now has their number, but luckily, this year there's more contenders to go against the Patriots than in years past. And the Patriots, I mean, New England's New England. They got Belichick, they got Brady, they got Gronk. Yes, there's some holes that they got, but they are a playoff team. And the name of the game is until you beat New England, you have to count them as a contender. So the AFC is very loaded. I think last year the NFC was the conference where everyone was very excited to see what happened. I think the AFC is going to be very loaded. It's going to be an exciting, exciting time. The NFC, it's pretty good too. The Saints and Rams are tied. I think Drew Brees, he could probably be playing his second Super Bowl, getting his second Super Bowl win. It's very possible. The Saints are very balanced. I'm sure they are watching the Rams Bears game very closely. And I'm sure they're very confident they can take on both teams and win in the playoffs, especially if they get home field advantage. The Rams, they're very good during the season. I worry that they are one of those teams that just does very good in the regular season, puts up these high points, but come playoff time, when the stage is big, they just don't come through. I'm a little worried about that if I'm a Rams fan. We'll see. I'm a little worried. Chicago, obviously, this is a game manager situation. Reminds me a little bit of the 2000 Ravens, where it was just like Trent Dilfer was just the game manager, where he just, did the passes he needed to do, didn't do more, didn't do less, but the defense really carried the team to the top. Kind of like Jacksonville did last year when they almost got to the Super Bowl with that defense. Khalil Mack has rejuvenated that franchise. I never thought coming into the season with the Packers on paper and the Vikings on paper talking that the Chicago Bears were going to be the NFC North champions. It's something. It is something. Phenomenal job. Phenomenal trade to get Khalil Mack. How about them Cowboys, the Dallas Cowboys? As much as I hate them, I mean, America's team, the Cowboys do bring in the ratings. They definitely, I mean, can you imagine a Super Bowl with the Patriots and Cowboys? Oh, the ratings would be through the roof, but I think it'll be the most hated Super Bowl that people will watch, honestly. Just because it's the Patriots and Cowboys, but the Cowboys are looking good. I got to admit, they got a good triple threat nucleus. Dak, he's not a superb quarterback, but he gets the job done. He has Zeke, he has Amari Cooper. I'm not going to compare it to the Aikman, Emmitt Smith, Michael Irvin days, but it's a good nucleus. It's something to start, something to build with. And they could possibly do an upset or two on the playoffs. Seattle, Russell Wilson is doing a phenomenal job with that team. I did not think Seattle, once all those Legion of Boom players have left, that Seattle would be relevant, but they surprised me. They really have. And then, there's a fight between Minnesota, Carolina, Philly, Washington, Green Bay. I mean, Minnesota should win it. They should be the sixth seed. I don't know what Kirk Cousins is. I think Kirk Cousins, I don't know if Minnesota is regretting paying that much money for a guy like Kirk Cousins, who I honestly, I don't know if he's the right quarterback for Minnesota. They still got a decent defense. They got Dalvin Cook, Latavius Murray at running back, but I don't know about the quarterback action. So that's the NFL right now. I mean, let's look into Week 15. Obviously, the Chargers, Kansas City, NFL Network tomorrow. That should be a very good game. I'm very interested to see what happens there. You got a few Saturday games too: Houston, the Jets, Cleveland, Denver. If you want to watch them, sure. And then the Sunday games, I think Dallas and Indianapolis. That's going to be an interesting game for sure. I think Green Bay and Chicago, even though Chicago is winning, is a rivalry game. Aaron Rodgers has had the Bears' number as of late, but the Bears with Khalil Mack definitely has that tough defense. But now that Green Bay has gotten rid of the coach, I think there's a new rejuvenation in Green Bay. They're still kind of technically fighting for a playoff spot. Maybe Green Bay goes on a streak. You never know. And then, that 425 game, the Patriots versus the Steelers. This game for me, this is the game that's going to prove, is Pittsburgh for real as a contender, or are they a pretender? This is the game. Is that your home? New England's coming to town. What's going to happen? I think if Pittsburgh loses this game, they're not going to do anything in the playoffs, and I think it might be time to blow some things up. That's a game I'm looking forward to watching. I'll be done with my paper. Excuse me. I got a project, 12, 15 page single space paper I'm doing right now. It's absolutely bananas, but I'll be done with that. So I'm gonna be watching that game very closely, New England, Pittsburgh. And then Philly versus the Rams, Philadelphia. I mean, I heard Carson Wentz. I think they're shutting him down for the rest of the year. I heard on the Colin Cowherd show today that Wentz is down for the year, so that game might be a dud. That might be a dud. But it'll be interesting to see the Rams if they can come back from that Bears loss, and then you got Monday Night Football. Drew Brees versus Carolina. and Carolina's fighting for a spot, divisional rivalry. So it's coming down to the wire. It's definitely coming down to the wire in terms of the playoffs. It's getting interesting. This is where I think the NFL starts to shine, just because everyone loves the playoffs. Everyone loves the playoffs. Everyone loves the playoff chase. So yeah, I'll be interested to see what happens with the NFL. So this has been another episode of Just My Take podcast. Yes, it's a short one. I just really wanted to talk about the NFL. There wasn't much news, much things that happened that I really wanted to speak on. Plus, I have a school project, so it's been a busy week for me, honestly, and I've been sick. But I still wanted to get an episode out to the fans. I thought it was good to talk about the NFL just because it's getting hot, it's getting interesting. I know I'm excited. I know a lot of people are excited about it. So I just wanted to get my take on the NFL. Hope you guys listen to the show. Let me know your take on how your team's doing and all that good stuff. Anyway, I'm posting the show tonight so you guys have access to it. Share it to your friends. Let me know what their feedback is on it. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat at DexPC5. That's D as in Derek, E as in Zelf. Let me say E as in Elephant, X as in Xylophone, P as in Paul, C as in Charlie, and the number 5. You can also follow me at the Just My Take page on Instagram. So hit me up on Instagram. It is interesting. I do get a lot of likes when I post a show and stuff whatnot, but it's very confusing to know if people. I know some people, a lot of people are listening to the episode, but sometimes it's hard to know who's listening, who's not listening. So if you guys could do me a favor, when you like the photo, leave a little message. Tell me what's your favorite part, or tell me that you enjoyed or disliked this part. So just so I could know, um, as a solo podcaster, this is a passion of mine. I'm trying to make the show as great as possible and try to provide content every week to try to just brighten up your week. And yeah, yeah, no, I'm blanking a little bit. Excuse me, but yeah, I'm just trying to brighten up the week a little bit. So I'm just trying to get more feedback, see who's listening, see what segments are being catered to. Next week, I think, should be an interesting show as well. With the more the NFL recap and some other major news that are going to break along the way. Anyway, we talked a lot of NFL, talked a lot of sports. This is a sports heavy episode. Remember, everyone, as I always say, whether you agree or disagree, it's just my take. Peace.